Hi, folks, it's Mr. Martin, and I want to give you sort of a basic overview of how to use some of the Gravit Designer tools and functions so that you feel comfortable when you're working with it. So the very first thing I want to show you is how to find Gravit Designer after you've downloaded and installed it. And there are two places it could be. If you're using a Chromebook, it's probably installed as an app. And if it's installed as an app, there's a place you need to look for it. I am not using a Chromebook. I'm actually using a Windows computer, and Gravit Designer is installed as a Chrome web browser extension, and that puts it in a different place. So I'll show you that too. So the very first thing you could do if you have a Chromebook, you would go down here into the lower left corner where my Windows menu is, and what you would see is a little circle down there in the lower left corner. If you click on that circle, it's called the launcher. You're going to see a little tab pop up from the bottom, and it'll have a search bar in it. And you can type Gravit Designer in there, and it will immediately show you where Gravit Designer is. And you can go ahead and click on it and get started. If Gravit Designer doesn't pop up there, it may be installed as a browser extension. And so you may either have this little thing that says apps either here on the left side, or it might be over here on the right side. But it's a little, it's a little grid of squares. And you go ahead and click apps, and you can see here, Gravit Designer is in the lower center. These are my other apps that are installed. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Gravit Designer and click on it, and it gets started right away. Now, as Gravit Designer is installing, it could take you to one of two pages. It could either take you to a login page, or if you're already logged in, it might take you just to the new design page. So we're going to see where this mysterious thing is going to take us right now. And it took me to the new design page, but it could easily take you to the login page. It's not a problem if it does. You just click the area where it says Google, and you would log in with your school Gmail and your password. So let's assume that I've already done that, and it takes me here to this launch page for my new design. So there's a lot of things I could do here. You can see I've got new design, but I could also choose to do new from a template, or open from Gravit Cloud, which is where they store my stuff, or open something that I've saved on the computer or the Chromebook, or even just open the most recent thing I've worked on. Over here, I have the option to create a brand new document just based on the size of it. This is in pixels, but you could change it to inches or centimeters or whatever. But most of the time, we're not going to do that. Most of the time, we're going to start, and in our class, we're going to start here from where it says print. And this is for a document that is created to be printed out at some point. But there are some other options here too, right? So you could create something that is optimized for the web or desktop, and it has screen sizes to choose from, or for social media or other devices, print on demand. I'll talk about that in a second, or templates. Now, we're not going to use templates here, but if you were doing something for yourself, if you're doing business cards or something like that, you might want to look in there and use one of their templates in a design. That's not what we're doing, so we're not going to do it. But what about this print on demand thing? I think this is really cool, because let's say you want to design a t-shirt. You can design your t-shirt based on whether you're having it done at Amazon or TeePublic or Cafe Press or Redbubble. They've got presets already loaded in, which is fantastic, very easy. So as I said, we're going to do mostly from print. So I'm going to go up here to print, and I'm going to select the paper size. Now I'm going to select US letter. US letter is 8.5 by 11. It's regular printer paper size. But I'm going to select landscape, which means it's going to be wide orientation rather than tall. And the reason I'm doing that is because I have a logo in my mind that is more horizontally oriented than tall. And so I want to make it as big as I can on the paper. So if I use a landscape oriented paper, I get most efficient use of the paper. So here is our design screen. This is the actual controls of Gravit Designer. And this thing in the center, this rectangle in the center, is representative of our paper. Notice it doesn't have any margins on it, because in Gravit Designer, you can design all the way out to the edge of the paper. In print, that's called full bleed design, because it goes all the way out to the edge of the paper. Now, you need to know that most printers cannot print full bleed. They always leave a little bit of a margin around the edge when you print them out, because they can't print off the edge of the paper. There are a few specialized printers that are out there that can do that, but most printers can't. So if you design something that goes all the way out to the edge, you do need to know it won't go quite all the way out to the edge. A little bit of it will be cut off and there'll be a little sliver of white paper around the edge. That's okay. If you're just doing something for display, you can always trim the edge off and show it the way you intended it. So anyway, let's talk about the tools. Across the top here, there are a bunch of tools. These are the most basic tools, but even some of these basic tools are more important to know than others. They are the very basic groundwork tools that everyone has to know. So let's talk about what they are. So the first ones are here in the select menu. If I click this little down caret, you can see there are various selection tools. Now, what do selection tools do? Selection tools are the tools that you use if you want to activate something that you've created on the paper so that you can change it in some way. So let's say you've made a rectangle and you want to change the color of it. You select it first to activate it, and then you change the color. Or maybe you want to grab a corner of it and you want to resize it. You would do that with a selection tool. Or maybe you want to just click in the middle and drag it and move it to another spot. Again, you would do that with a selection tool. And most of the time, you're going to use the pointer tool, which looks like the black arrow. But there is another tool you're going to use often. It's called the sub-select tool, and it's the one below the pointer tool that looks like a white arrowhead. Now, there are other tools. There are 3 other tools there. We're not going to deal with those right now. They're useful tools, but they're a little bit more advanced, and we're working on very basic stuff. So the pointer tool and the sub-select tool are the 2 for right now that you need to know in the select menu. We're going to go over here to the shape menu and click on the down caret. And there you can see you have all of the basic shapes that you would need to make anything. So you have a line, you have a rectangle, you have an ellipse, you have polygons, you have triangles, you have stars. And you could either use these individually or combine them together to make other shapes. I said you have everything you need here to make just about anything, but that's not true, is it? What if you need to make a shape that is irregular, that doesn't have the nice curve of an ellipse or the nice straight lines of a rectangle or polygon? What if you need something else? Well, we're going to get to that in a second. But let me just talk about how these tools work. They're very straightforward. I click on this and I pull the rectangle and I left click and drag out and make the rectangle whatever size I need. Now, I can do the same thing with an ellipse, and I can do the same thing with anything, but I'll do an ellipse here. So an ellipse is kind of like an oval. But these 2 tools have another function. If I click on the rectangle tool or the ellipse tool, and I hold the shift key down on my keyboard. Now, you can't see that I'm doing that, but I promise I am. Hold the shift key down and then drag out your shape. Notice that my rectangle is a square. And notice that my ellipse, when I hold shift and drag it out, is a circle. Okay? So holding shift will make your rectangle a square, and holding shift will make your ellipse a circle. And holding shift often does a lot of other things too. So it's always worth it to kind of experiment and see what happens when I make that shape and I hold shift. But anyway, so I'm going to get the pointer tool. And I'm going to select this rectangle and I'm going to select the ellipse. Notice I just drew a box around them. And now they're selected. I'm hitting backspace on my keyboard to get rid of them. Okay, so they're gone. I just want the square and I want the circle. And so I've got both of these here and they're pretty dull to look at. So what I'm going to do is with the pointer tool, I'm going to select the square and I want to make it not gray anymore. So inside a shape is called the fill. And so if I go over here to the fills control panel, you can see, oh, there's that circle right there, and that circle is gray. So I'm going to click on that, and up pops my color choices. So if you imagine down here these swatches that are already preloaded into here of grays and colors, these are like, this is like the crayons in the box, right? Very, limited choices. But so I could choose that or I could choose that or whatever. But up top here, this is like your paint set. You can choose anything you want. And you'll notice if you look at my rectangle changing, if I want another color, I just grab this and I drag it to a different spot, So I do have all kinds of options for colors. So I'm going to choose something purple right there. And I'm done. So now it's purple. And I want to pick a color that contrasts a lot with purple for my circle. So I'm going to pick green, like the Joker. So if I go here to fills again and I select that gray thing and boom. And I want to pick a green. So I'm going to go over here and pick something in green. I want it a little bit more yellow green than that. Maybe something right in there. That's pretty good. So now I've got two contrasting shapes as far as color. They really set each other off. Notice that they don't have a line around them. Neither one of them does. Now, if you highlight them, you see one, but when they're not highlighted, there's no line around the edge of them. Okay, that line is called a border, and no border's been added to this. So if I need to add a border, I select it and I click the plus button, and that adds a border. And the border, as you can see, is black and it's 1 point thick. Now let's just click off of that shape for a minute. I can kind of see a border there, but I can tell you that offends my personal design sense. I have this thing about borders. I either like the border to be really obvious or not be there at all. I don't want this kind of I can see it thing. So I've got this kind of I can see it black border there. How can I make that more noticeable? I'm going to go down to where it says 1 point. I'm going to highlight it and I'll just pick a number, 10. Oh yeah, for sure. Now I can see that the artist definitely intended there to be a border. And same with the green one. I'm going to do that too. I'm going to add a border. And I want that border to be pretty meaty. So I'm going to put a 10 on that. So there, look, there's no mistaking that shape is a purple shape with a black line around it, green shape with a black line around it. But you know what? That's not very designy. I'm going to kind of boring. So I'm going to click on that purple shape. And here's what I want. Since these two shapes contrast each other, I think the border around my purple should be the green that is the circle. How am I going to do that? Well, believe it or not, Gravit Designer has a tool just for that. Remember that we change colors here, but look over here, this little thing, you can barely see it, but it looks like an eyedropper. I'm going to click on that and I'm going to go over here to the green. Boom. Oh, look at that. Now I've got a green border around my purple square. And I want to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to select it and I'm going to go get that eyedropper on borders. And I'm going to go over here and pick purple. Look at that. Look at that. Awesome. They contrast each other. Now here's a weird thing. So I moved this over. Let's just pretend that I'm creating some fantastic design here, which I'm not. But let's just pretend I'm creating some fantastic design. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, wow, that circle is cool. That shape together is cool, but I really want the square in front of the circle. Why is the square back there? Well, the square was created before the circle. So that's why it's in the background. How can I change that? How can I put the circle back there and bring the square in the front? So what I can do is I select the square, or select the circle. I'm going to go up to this menu called Modify, and I'm going to go down to this Arrange function. And when I do that, you can see, look, I've got all these options. I can bring it to the front. Well, it's already in the front. I can bring it forward, send it backward. These are the commands that you would use if you had like a bunch of shapes on there. Really, I only have two. So I'm just going to send it right to the back. Boom. And look at that. Now the square is in front of the circle. So that's how you use the arrange command. What if, though, what if they were like this and I really wanted to align them? I wanted the tops of them to be even. Well, I can get my pointer tool and draw a box around both of them so they're both selected. And I can go to Modify, Align, and look, I've got all kinds of ways to align them. But as I said, I want to align the tops of them. So I'm just going to align the tops. Boom. And the tops are all lined up now. And it's a little easier to see if I make this circle a little smaller. So I'm going to hold Shift because I want it to stay a circle. Push toward the center. Make it a little smaller. And look, say it's over there. So I'm going to highlight those both again. And again, I'm going to go Modify, Align, Top. And you can see the tops are lined up. Or I could do Modify, Align, Middle. And you can see the centers are now lined up. So that's how you use the Align menu. And by the way, there's also Align this way so that you could have them vertically aligned. What if I wanted to rotate something? Well, I can select it, and I'm going to go here to Modify, Transform, and I'm just going to rotate this 45 degrees to the right. Boom. Very cool, right? And then I've got these two things. Let's say that this was my cool logo. I select both of those objects. What if I wanted to flip that? So I could go to modify, transform, and I'm going to flip them horizontal. Boom. And you can see. So there's a bunch of stuff that you know how to use. Suddenly you know how to use a bunch of stuff. So I said before, though, I have all these shapes that I can use together to make just about any shape, but not any shape. What if I want an irregular shape? Well, I'm going to go over here to this tool. This is called the path tool, the path set of tools. And what's a path? Well, a path is a series of points, and it has a line connecting those points, but that line can be visible or invisible. For example, rectangles and squares and circles and all of those are all made out of paths. We don't call those path tools because they're pre-made, but they're paths, right? And as I showed you, you can have a rectangle that has no border around it. Well, that's a path, but it doesn't have a line that you can see. The line is there, but you can't see it. Okay, so the same thing with all other kinds of paths. So there are 3 path tools on this path menu. If I go here, they are the pen tool, the Bezigon tool, and the freehand tool. Now you'll notice if you look at the Bezigon tool in the middle, to the right of that, it says highlighted in yellow, Pro. The Bezigon tool is a tool that you can only use if you have the professional version, the pay version of Gravit Designer, but it's not a tool that you're going to need that often, so it's not something that we're going to miss. We do need that pen tool at the top. And so I'm going to go to the pen tool and I'm going to show you how it works. Now, the pen tool is a little complicated to get used to, but once you get used to it, you're going to find it's probably your most useful tool. So just not only watch what I'm doing, but listen to what I'm saying while I'm doing it, because it works 2 different ways. So here's the first way it works. If I want to make an irregular geometrical shape, though, with nice angled corners, an irregular shape using the pen tool, here's how I do it. I click and let go, and then I move to where my next corner is going to be, and I click and let go. Move to the next corner, click and let go. Move to the next corner, click and let go, and so on and so forth until I get back to where I started. And then I click, and now that is a shape. So if I wanted to fill that with something, boom, no problem, right? There you go. So that's how it would work if you wanted nice angled corners. And let's say, though, that you made this shape and you're like, it's pretty much the shape I want, but it's not exactly. How would you fix it? Well, that's when you go up here to your select menu and you click and pull down to the sub-select, the white arrowhead. Sub-select tool allows you to pick individual points and move them. So you can click the individual point and move it until you get this shape exactly the way that you want it. Isn't that cool? So that's the sub-select tool on the select menu. What if, though, I didn't want something with angled corners? What if I wanted something that had curves in it? Well, I go back to my pen tool, and this time, and remember, you need to listen to what I'm saying as well as watch what I'm doing. This time I would do this. I would click, but I wouldn't let go of the button. I'm dragging it, and then I let go, and then I go to the next spot, and I click and drag, and then let go, and click and drag, and then let go, and click and drag, and then let go, click and drag, and then let go, and I go back to where I started, and I click and drag. And then I let go. I'm going to get my selection tool, my pointer tool, and click, and look, there's the shape that I just made. But what if that shape, again, it's kind of close to what I want, but it's not really what I want? How can I adjust that? Well, I'm going to do a little exercise here and show you how I would do it. So I'm going to highlight with my pointer tool all of these, and I'm hitting backspace to get rid of them. Now I'm going to get my pen tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the basic shape of a hand. So I start down here at the wrist, and I click and let go, click and drag 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 and let go, drag and let go, click and drag and let go, go back down here, then go back over and close the wrist off. So, you take a look at that, and yeah, it's very basically hand shape. It's a cartoon. It's not a great hand or anything like that. What would I do? Well, at this point, I'm going to go get the subselect tool, and I can see all my points on there. And I'm going to click on this one, and these are the handles for the curve. So I'm going to make that a little more of a curve in this direction. And I'm going to click on this point, and I'm going to make that a little less of a curve period by pushing it toward the point. And then maybe pull the point back a little bit too. Maybe move the wrist. Okay, and then I'm going to flatten that out just a little bit. Move this point over a bit so that finger can have some thickness. Click on that point and just give that finger a little thickness. Maybe move this up a little bit. Move that up. And same with that. Move that up. And that finger definitely is going to need some thickness. So I think I'm going to just have to move everything over a little bit to make things thicker. I'll just move them over and adjust them as I go. So yeah, make that, and we know that finger is going to be a little taller, but these generally are about the same. A little less curve by pushing toward the point, a little more curve by pulling away from the point. And, as I said, I'm really a perfectionist, so I could probably spend all day doing this. My wife always gets mad at me when I have a paying job because it always takes me so long because I just can't stop myself. But there you go. It's not perfect or anything, but it's more like a hand. And now I have just one more thing I want to show you. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the hand. And I want to show you this tool. This is the polygon tool. Now, the polygon, polygon is a many-sided form, So when I make this, when I click and drag this, it makes a hexagon. That's its default, is a 6-sided hexagon shape. But what if I don't want a hexagon? Well, it's funny. When I clicked and made that, look, this menu opened up, and it's called the Appearance menu. And here it has the points. These are the points around the outside. So if I wanted to make that, say, a pentagon, I just make that 5 points, and boom, it's a pentagon. It has some other really cool controls here. These two in particular, one of them is the corner control. So I can make the rounded corners by pushing it this way. So if you look at that shape, you can see that the rounded corners. And also opacity. In other words, can you see through it? So let me do this. I'm going to copy it. I've got it selected. I do Control-C on my keyboard and then Control-V. And now look, I've got 2 copies. And why don't we make them colors? So I'm going to make this fill orange. And I'm going to make this fill red. And so you can see the orange is on top of the red. So with the orange selected, look, I can go in here and in opacity, I can change how opaque it is. And you can start to see the red through the orange. So isn't that cool? So anyway, so there's a bunch of tools, a bunch of functions, things that should enable you to play around with this and have some fun and make some things. So go out there and practice Gravit Designer. Thanks for watching.